All right. Okay, Larry, you can take it away.
Okay, we do have a quorum. My name is Larry Franklin, and today I'll be serving as the chairperson for the Barber Board meeting. The meeting is called to order at 10:07 a.m. on June 16th, 2025. Are there any amendments to today's agenda? And if there aren't any amendments, may I have a board member to make a motion to approve today's agenda?
Stepping in, Tony, here is now wanted to amend the agenda, or did you want to table until August?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We can amend. I would like to amend it to add in the conversation about the email that I sent.
Okay.
Right. So you would like to propose for us to amend 6 old business and add I don't know, outreach initiative.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to amend the agenda for old business to say outreach initiative. Is that all the amendments we have today? Great. So Larry, you're gonna ask for motions to amend the agenda.
Okay. May I have a motion to amend the agenda by a board member, please?
I motion to amend the agenda.
May I have a second?
A second. This is Andrew Campbell.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Are there any amendments to the April 14, 2025 minutes? And if there aren't any amendments, may I have a motion for a board member to approve April 14th, 2025 minutes?
I motion to approve the April's amendment, agenda.
I second that motion.
Minutes.
Waits into this.
The minutes.
It's there'd be a motion to approve the April minutes.
Yes, I'm sorry. I motion to approve the April minutes.
Okay, I need a second to that.
Yes.
I second the motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And
Any opposed?
just as a point of clarification, I think we need to get a motion to approve the agenda as amended for today.
Okay.
We approved the amendment. Now you need to approve the agenda as amended.
I'd like to put in a motion to approve the agenda for today as amended.
I'll second that. Campbell.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Okay. Moving on to new business, letter item A is a recap from the August 14th, 2025 meeting. Just stated briefly in that meeting that our October meeting has been moved from October 13th, 2025, which is a holiday, to October 20th, 2025. So please note that on your calendar. Also, all board members had voted in agreement to also change the limited barber stylist theory hours. So that will be coming forth at a later date. Moving on to item number B, which is the apprentice restart. And I yield the floor to Mr. Jacob Guy at this time.
Morning, everyone. Since our last meeting, I spoke with a former apprentice and his sponsor, Mr. Sean Dyson, regarding petitioning the board for an apprentice restart. I not here for Mr. Dyson this morning. It doesn't look like he's on the call, but Mr. Dyson, if you are, now would be the time for us to complete your restart. But it does not look like he's here, so he has missed his opportunity and we'll move on. I'll give him a second to speak up if there's anybody.
I think we can move on.
Yeah, it looks like we can move.
Wait.
Let's.
So, this closing again.
Mr. Sean Dyson or Placide Uombi, the apprentice and sponsor, are you on the call for your restart this morning? All right, moving on. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have item number B, item number C, PSI exam outlines. So yet I am yielding the floor again to Ms. Nicole Fletcher as far as moving forward. I'm not sure if Mr. Sean Condor is going to speak on behalf of that.
Sean, you can jump in at any time. So board members, hello again. I sent you all some outlines via PSI. Sean Condor, who was our contact over there at PSI, sent me some information about changing our examination. And so for, PSI moves forward with that, he needs board approval, and for us to put our eyes on that content. So I did send that over to you all. I'm wondering if you all had any thoughts or questions about that. The barber portion was significantly smaller than the cosmetology portion, which is, to be expected. So in speaking with Sean, he did say that if the board were to adopt these changes that I sent to you all, that will be the board approving using the Barber PSI national exam. So the board did pass on that a couple of years ago or a year or so ago. The Board of Cosmetologists has begun using the PSI national exam. So this is the opportunity for this board as well. Sean, if you could just speak to some the major changes that are happening with the test, I think that will give the board some context. Exactly, specifically from the testing vendor, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, we did get together not too long ago, about a year ago, I guess, and talk about this change. You wanted to wait till the new content had come out before we made a decision. So you all have the content in your hands. You'll see that it's a little bit different. We focus mainly on health and safety. So it's not so much, just for instance, barbers never have agreed on a specific shave. There's the standard 14 stroke shave. There's all kinds of different shaves. So in the shaving section, we watch them do 4 strokes and we watch them handle the razor in each type of those strokes. We watch how they deal with their client. We watch, what they do with that razor and so forth. So we have them do those, we have to see something in order for them to actually demonstrate their health and safety as they do it. But this is a test that basically we've taken all the technique out. They can use the techniques they need, of course, shaving techniques or shaving techniques, period. But in the hair, we've done a lift section rather than a highlighting section, and they can do that any way they feel free to do that. So it's a little different in its overall, the 3,000 foot level when you look at it, but really it focuses mainly on the health and safety, of the practitioner and of the general public. So, that's what's important to your legislature. That's what's important to your state, is that, these barbers go out and they perform their task, not hurt anybody or themselves for that matter. So I just kind of wanted to field some questions that you might have on, on these outlines, and maybe the thought behind some of the ways that we've done things here, so that we can just kind of have an open conversation about that.
I do have one question. When will this actually go into effect?
Well,
For the barbers?
mainly, it would go into effect the same time the cosmetology would go into effect, number one. We would change it over all at once because there is a change in your base computer programs and things. Have a little more versatility with reports and stuff in this new program, but it would definitely be late in the year that we would do it. I would want to have probably 4 or 5 meetings with your barbers like we did the cosmetologists and make sure they're comfortable with the content and they're not just, frailing around trying to figure out what's going on. So I'll have enough meetings that they can understand, how this test operates and they're comfortable with it before we start it. But that would depend on when the tests are adopted. And then we would want to give at least 90 to 120 days, for those schools to get ready for that test.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, not so much questions for me, but just from my observation and comparing the two, I guess PSI package that we currently have versus this one, I honestly like the way it looks. Especially, I'm trying to go back to it so I can zoom out. What was not let me zoom out? Especially some of the sections where, if you look at like the shave section, it kind of gets really detailed in what they're looking for. I think that will help mitigate some of the issues that our candidates have when it comes to preparing for the exam. We kind of it's a little vague. We know what areas we're looking at. We know what to study for, but I mean, you actually have some actual sentences that say, "Here's what we're looking for." I like the way it looks.
In the theory, we really reworked the theory tests, on our national level, and we wrote a lot of new content. There were some Maryland barbers that actually worked on this as well. So, we got a lot of good input from your state barbers as well.
Mr. Campbell, you have a question?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Mr. Connor. My question is, I understand the national exam is moving towards the national for the theory. How will that impact the actual state's side for the practical? So I know that the push and I understand the national theory, but as far as the practical, is that more so on a national level, or will the state still maintain to be able to maneuver as we also get new guidelines and things like that? Or as even with Mr. Trent has mentioned, he likes some of the portions of the way that the format for the shave is already set up. So how much will the practical be impacted if and can or is that separate from the theory? So in other words, could we have the theory national and the practical still be determined and left up to the actual state?
But we would prefer, of course, to have both on the national level. The great thing about the national test is everyone who's taking that test is taking the exact same test. So we are a true national test. And so, if you're taking the test in Alabama or Colorado, it's the same test. So reciprocity becomes a little easier because they know exactly what tests they've taken. So national tests are a great customer service item for your barbers. We've also really looked at some of the issues that barbers are facing today. A lot of the states don't have formal programs; they just have apprenticeship programs and so forth. So we really reworked these tests so that they're more comprehensible. They're definitely, like you said in the outlines, are more determined. To say these are the things that we're looking for in the test. And I've even gone as far as in that shaving content, we actually show you a video of the practical, them shaving in the practical, so that the test taker, when they get there, knows what we expect. I kind of call it the backing the trailer theory. And in our industry, I can teach you all day long how to back a trailer. I can bring a little truck and trailer in and we can back those up, we can watch videos. And when, the rubber meets the road and I take you out of the parking lot, can you actually back that trailer? And that's kind of how we look at the practical today. Can they perform those tasks safely? And so I think there's a lot more information that we give you and give to the schools and the apprentices to help them get licensed in this field.
Okay, I mean, I understand completely. My concern was more so to the level of standards. I know they vary depending on where you go. So I just want to, I'm just looking at maintaining standards. That's it.
Yeah,
As we
and
have them. That's
they'll
it.
be
Thank you.
yeah, they'll be exactly the same in every state we tested.
Mr. Guy?
That's me, Nicole.
Oh, okay.
So we're just logged in under Jake's email. Thank you for your questions, everybody. I think my question or comment rather was kind of similar to Mr. Campbell's, is about, the standards from state to state. I know this is a national exam. When we talk about scope of practice, it varies from state to state. Some states license natural hairstyling, whereas, Maryland does not. It's actually very clear in our code that we do not. So like just specifically about this portion right here in the hairstyling, locking and braiding, I could just see, I guess my question, Sean, is the portion of the test, is this theory or practical? I assume this is
The theory.
this is theory, right? And that's in textbook, however, it's just not regulated. So I could just see, rather a comment, I could just see how it could be confusing to the test taker, what they are licensed to do here in Maryland specifically, what they're allowed to do. With locking and braiding, it is a natural hair, process, so it's not regulated. But I just see, the inconsistency between that portion of the exam and what they're actually regulated and allowed to do in Maryland specifically.
The PBA's made a huge push to get natural hair included in both the cause and the barbering exams, which is true. They should be able to do pretty much any kind of hair and do anything to it. And for a long time, our tests were really centered on a technique rather than just watching the health and safety of that. And I think the locking and braiding portions don't really go into real detail about whether it's a crochet or if it's a hand method, or it goes more into the health and safety, how to disinfect your station and sanitize your hands and do those kind of things while you're doing those particular tasks. But I think you're right, but I think there's also a big push nationwide to get that locking and braiding. There's actually a loctician bill going into a few states that that people who lock and braid hair outside of African hair braiding need to be licensed, and I agree with that actually. So I think most of you do, but I think there's going to be a bigger push to get that stuff licensed down the road.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you responding to that. I did see Tony's hand up and then Channing. I don't see them anymore. Did you all have some things to add? Questions? Tony or Channing? See, you don't.
He actually answered. He answered what I was getting ready to ask.
Okay. Tony, I assume the same situation.
I'm good.
Okay. All right, good deal. Like I said in my email, I wasn't necessarily asking for a vote. I did this information in front of you. We will have to make a decision soon on this, so they can know which direction we're moving. As Sean just said, the implementation, like you asked of Larry earlier, depends on what direction the board decides to go. Because he wants to give at least 90 days for us to essentially get our feet together and be prepared for this test and not, shock the system with this change of examination. So board members, you know, my charge to you is just to really thoroughly go through this outline that I've sent you. It does include the cosmetology portion. You are free to review that. However, that's not what I'm asking you to provide your thoughts on in your vote. It'll be specifically, of course, to your board in terms of the barber theory and practical in regard to the PSI national exam. Right. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. If we have further questions, board members, please jump in on the end. Members of the public who will continue to speak, please jot down your question or your comment and save it to the end. And we'll be sure to address you when we get to public comment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I will come to you, Larry. All right. It's up to you.
That's fine. We can move on to old business. Item number A, registered apprenticeship program. I yield the floor again to this Jesse Skittrell.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. And thank you to the board for allowing me the opportunity to come and present this information. Real quick, my name is Jesse Skittrell, and I am a DOL apprenticeship ambassador for the Department of Labor for the national office. And as an apprenticeship ambassador, my job for the beauty industry is to kind of talk about exactly what registered apprenticeship is versus a traditional board apprenticeship and how that might be of an advantage or a disadvantage, and specifically where there's some challenges or issues in the state of Maryland as well. So I myself run a direct entry apprenticeship company, actually the largest multi-employer sponsor nationally. We have over 500 training partners and 750 apprentices ourselves in our system, and then we also develop systems for other people. So that's a lot of where this information that I'm going to share with you comes from. And we just wanted to present some concepts on why moving to a registered apprenticeship program might be advantageous for the state of Maryland. So there's really two parts about this that we want to talk about. And one, why the board should go with RAP or registered apprenticeship, and then what is the structure of a registered apprenticeship program, because there is some slight variations on a theme from what you're currently doing to what a state board program does. So one of the biggest things that you're going to notice with a registered apprenticeship program that's going to be a huge deal is the administrative resources are moved. So the administrative resources move from being managed underneath the board to being managed by the Department of Labor, even though you're under the same board, the apprenticeship office over in that piece. So it takes a little bit of the administrative piece off of the state board, while the state board is the one that has the deciding factor that's built into it. The Department of Labor, as far as the actual day-to-day administration, is the one that is going to be able to do that. So they're going to do things like tracking, reporting. They're going to use the RAPID system. The RAPID system is the national reporting system for all registered apprenticeship programs. What is nice about that is that means that the apprentice can actually transfer their training. So they could be picked up in another state and their hours where they left. And we've personally done this ourselves with apprentices. They're able to transfer from one system into another and not lose their footing or where they're currently at or their start date. That's a huge deal. Right now, if they start in Maryland, they stay in Maryland. They have to finish inside of Maryland. So there's intense record keeping through the RAPID system, and there's accountability, compliance, and as well as tracking that's going to be involved in every piece of that all the way around. One of the biggest differences between the two that we really want to address is employee treatment. Now, the challenge when we use the word apprentice by federal definition is an employer-employee relationship that happens to have a education piece wrapped around it. The problem is we use the word apprentice when we are really referring to a student, and the two cannot be convoluted. So when we talk about an apprentice in a barbershop, what we're really talking about is an employee at the end of the day, which means labor laws are going to overtake that. Now, this is irregardless of how you feel. The law actually says that they are technically an employee. Now, with that being said, And the way that that would be defined is called the ability to benefit. So federal labor law, as well as Maryland state law, would use a ability to benefit test, meaning who is the person that benefits most in this relationship. And that's clearly going to be the salon or the professional is going to be the one that benefits the most, not the apprentice, especially where it comes to financially. With that being said, where the gray area comes into place and there are some liability issues is the statement by the Maryland State Board, whether it's cosmetology or barbering, that simply says that an apprentice may or may not be paid. And that type of unclarity sets up some liability issues. If an apprentice got snotty about something, they could technically sue the sponsor for liability. And then the sponsor obviously would come back to the state board, and their lack of knowledge of labor laws is really not going to be a great defense for them. So that opens not only the shop up for liability issues, that also opens up the state board for some liability issues. So some serious things to think about. Now, that changes the dynamic of the relationship, because what the state board worries about, as Mr. Condor said, is we're worried about public safety. We're worried about how they actually do the skill set, and that's absolutely admirable. What the labor department, specifically the apprenticeship department, is going to worry about is the labor piece or the employee factor that's built into it. So by moving this over to the apprenticeship office with a reference to licensing, because they always are going to look back at the licensing board and consider them into the conversation and make sure that they're a piece and a part of that conversation as well. They're going to take into consideration the pay structure, making sure that the apprentice is paid in a regular way, and they're going to take care of that oversight and make sure that they're not being abused in any form or format. Now, with that being said, what this does is when you create an apprenticeship program, it's a little bit more strict and strenuous when you create a true Department of Labor registered apprenticeship program. What you're going to have first and foremost is what's called a set of standards. So if anybody's gone to school or you've owned a school, you know, you have to create your catalog. You typically have the state board have to look over that catalog, and that catalog says, how do you onboard an apprentice? How are they treated? What if they leave early? What if they're disciplined? All the details are thought through, as well as your curriculum. And that's really what standards are. And that's done with the apprenticeship office. They have a boilerplate that they typically use, and they work with you, and you're assigned an ATR that's going to walk you through that whole process and get your standards written. And then we take that before the board and get that approved. So we have a, how are they onboarded? Well, how are they disciplined? What if they have a complaint? What are their pay progressions? What is their curriculum? Inside of those standards is something called work processes, Appendix A. And that work process is going to take a look at the scope of practice that's already expected by a barber, and it's going to align them accordingly. And it will make them select a curriculum. So you're going to have to select a curriculum, whether it's Pivot Point or whether it's Milady. Those are the only two that are accepted. And it will say, this is the one that we're using, and it will align those work processes with the scope of practice and hold that shop accountable to it. Now, what's nice about this is outside of work processes, the shop is going to be held accountable for making sure that apprentice gets all the way through the program, as well as what is their completion rate, as well as are they passing, et cetera, et cetera. And they're being held, they're put through a compliance review process at regular intervals. So they're oversighted by the Department of Labor office, and they have to account for what's going on with apprentices. Inside of a registered apprenticeship program, the definition of a sponsor changes. The definition of a sponsor would be the establishment license, not the professional license. What's unique about that is that changes the ratio relationship. So a journeyman is defined as anybody who's held their license for 3 years or longer. Anybody in that establishment that had their license for 3 years or longer can oversight that apprentice, but the apprentice is attached to that address. That changes the dynamic just a little bit. So it puts the onus on the shop owner. If you're an independent contractor, obviously you still have your own establishment license, so you're putting them underneath that establishment license. So the dynamic of the relationship changes a little bit of exactly what's there. Now, why would we choose to, what are the big advantages here? Some of the big advantages to doing a registered apprenticeship program is, number one, there's the reciprocity, like we mentioned. The completion certificate the apprentice gets at the very end is actually have national reciprocity. So it can go from, their training can go from state to state to state, not necessarily if their license didn't transfer, their hours will definitely transfer because it is a federal document that can go and is defendable from state to state to state. And yes, I have defended it from state to state to state so that they have the ability to be able to actually test. The second piece behind this in doing a registered apprenticeship program is the financial benefit to the shop. And a lot of things when you're an RAP, a registered apprenticeship program, you're able to access because you have an actual, for lack of a better word, accreditation through the apprenticeship office, is you can access things like WIO, a Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And this is used for in-demand occupations, which barbering is. And once you're inside of barbering apprenticeship, the apprentice themselves can access assistance. The shop can access wage reimbursement assistance. You can access all sorts of tax credits. In the state of Maryland, you have a $3,000 per apprentice tax credit up to 5 apprentices in a space in a given tax year. Maryland Business Workforce will fund 50% of the training costs for incumbent worker, meaning somebody that's already in your space, they'll reimburse up to 50%. And the Maryland Community College Promise Scholarship has a $5,000 scholarship for apprentices. So there's lots of financial opportunities that could be accessed, as well as you have the ability to access VA and a lot of other things. I know in our program, we use VA quite a bit. Inside of the structure of apprenticeship, there's several different pieces that are created. There's standards that are created. Like we talked about, there's an Appendix A that will have their work processes all done and taken care of. There's an employer agreement. There's an apprentice agreement. There is an apprentice permit that's created that the state board can actually, the same thing that you guys are currently doing, they apply for a permit. But all of this, do they start? Do they stop? Are they suspended? All of that. And are they getting the right information is handled by the apprenticeship office over there rather than having to do the administrative burden over here. So to give you an idea of the success rate of this, I do this with a lot of programs, not just my own. I work with a lot of other programs, and we are, like I mentioned, we're probably one of the largest in the United States because we are a national program. To give you an idea of the success rate, we have a 96% first-time pass rate to the licensure exam, a 93% retention rate to the shop, a 75% productivity rate, and an 86% completion rate in the program. So having that structure and that follow through really lays the hammer down a little bit more and makes this a little bit more of a structured program. So I thank you for your time, and it's all yours. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you.
Do you want me to answer?
Board members, now is your time to speak, ask your questions. Board members only, please. Please, member of the public, please hold your questions until we get to that section of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. I think that this is really good. This is through Department of Labor, as you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
That's really good. In the past, we have discussed a venture with an apprenticeship program, kind of trying to just get things streamlined and get things clarified and have some accountability on both sides. So we've already talked about some ventures, and some of the things that you mentioned, those are things that came up in those conversations. I personally think that it's a great idea to kind of move in this kind of direction. Now, so it's Department of Labor. You guys do this for other states. Is that accurate?
Yes, we work with other states in bringing forth legislation as well as how to set up their programs and structure them in such a way and create the bridge between the industry and the Department of Labor. So we advocate for them in the field as well.
Wonderful. And then my last question will be, have you all dealt with any, let's say, any apprenticeship programs that might be ran through maybe community colleges and things like that? Or are these more so just barbershops, or do we have something that's standardized through their state boards?
Both. We've done absolutely both. The one that ours are always DOL. If we're going to partnership, it's always going to be ran through DOL. They're always a partnership with the state board because it's a licensing entity. Department of Labor apprenticeship, because it is licensing, will nod to the state board. They'll reach out and say, hey, what's the role of implement? What's the scope of practice? So there is definitely this connection piece between the two of them. And I see it with community colleges. I see it with private programs. Pre-apprenticeship programs, the circle is very large. Now, pre-apprenticeship programs are really great. I myself personally, I'm doing some in Pennsylvania and I'm doing some here. I'm in Seattle, Washington. Here in Seattle, in pre-apprenticeship programs, we're able to do a lot of outreach as well to the community. And we're able to tap into dollars designed for pre-apprenticeship, and then we matriculate them into a real registered apprenticeship program. So they're kind of kickstarted while they're in high school. So we see community colleges, pre-apprenticeship programs. We see private institutions, and we have large salons and large shops that make this a huge part of growing their workforce development.
Thank you for this.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I love to hear that this even exists. I didn't know. And I'm glad you came on.
This is my job. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Jesse. This was a great overview of your program. I do wonder how, with so many of our shops being like not necessarily commission-based shops, a lot of our shops are booth rental. That means that our barbers, our licensees who may have apprentices are technically contractors, not employees of said shop.
Yes. Yeah.
What does the program look like for the barber who has an apprentice that is a booth renter?
Thank you. That's a great question. Depending upon what the stance is from the Department of Labor, typically the stance is they have to be a W-2 employee of the booth renter, because the booth renter has their own establishment license. That's the most important part, is to make sure that they are paid and they're making at least that floor of minimum wage, which is the federal standard. So that does change it. Now, the thing I know in my program, because we experience this a lot, specifically with barbers more often than not. I myself, just so you all know, I'm 6th generation barber hairdresser. I was a barber before as a hairdresser, very familiar. With the barbering industry, one of the things that we do is we teach people how to have W-2s, because there's this misconception that they're going to be very expensive and they're hard to do and so on and so forth. We're in 2025. It's like a snap to have an employee. So we teach people how to actually have an employee, and then they become a booth renter once they have their license in place. And that just applies those protections for them while they're in the program. Thank you.
Just to be clear, while in the program, if I, as a master barber in Maryland, want to have an apprentice, I need to basically employ that apprentice as an employee.
Correct. That would be the stance of the Department of Labor, unless they were to say something otherwise specific to Maryland. Now, with that said, this changes because now the sponsor is the establishment license. So if you're a booth renter, you would have an establishment license that would be connected to. If you are a large salon owner, you could have your establishment license, and then you could have those be employees with inside of that sponsored number. So instead of being connected to the professional license, they're connected to the establishment license. Different game.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No, thanks for asking.
Channing?
Yes. So with that being said, I know that currently, since he's mentioning something like, and I guess we can talk about this, but he said that it now will move from under the barber's license to the establishment's license for the apprenticeship. Would the same standards apply when it comes to how many apprentices each master barber can have? Because right now the state allows 3. Would that then change that number to something more?
Great question. So typically, unless the Department of Labor says something differently, and I have seen this happen in a few states, it's typically a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 journeyman to 1 apprentice. Now, if you had an establishment and you had multiple barbers in there that have all had their license, and a journeyman is typically defined as anybody who's had their license for 3 years or longer. So if you have multiple barbers in there and you have, 6, 7 journeymen, you can have multiple apprentices for the establishment in that space. So you could typically, and that's one of the reasons for taking it off of the professional and putting it onto the space. Because a lot of times you'll have that apprentice who has a full book, and Joe the barber, who's he's sitting underneath, wants to take Saturday off, and now apprentice can't work that day, and it affects their ability to make money. But John the barber is already there in the space, and he's a journeyman, so he can take care of it. But it's all done within that establishment.
Wonderful. Sounds cool.
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, go
Tony
right
had
ahead. Go right ahead.
Hi, this is Campbell. Hey, I have a question. You did answer towards the end of your presentation about the benefits, so I got that part. But I have a question in reference, how do you all look at the educational side of this apprenticeship? How is that viewed? I know it's the labor department. You look at you say from a financial perspective, you're looking at it, but how does it look at it from a trainee perspective? And whether it be one apprentice, whether it be 3, and if the owner is not now, well, where does this put the master barber or the training, the whole training portion, just on that perspective? I mean, is it looked at, and the board monitors hours and things like that. So this would, of course, a person would have to just apply separately. So as of right now, this is kind of separate, but you're kind of federally looking at things from a legal standpoint and financial as far as the labor department looks at it.
Also, from an educational perspective, I mean, what this does is, in order to have it, thank you for asking that, by the way. In order to have this program, you're going to have to align with the scope of practice expected by the state board, which dictates that there's only 2 curriculums that can be used, and that's a national thing. It's Milady and or Pivot Point, typically only one or the other. So you're gonna have to define which one you use, and in that work processes, you're held accountable to teaching those work processes. So if your apprentice is not actually passing, you don't have a completion rate, and you don't have the right completion rate, you're pulled from the program. So they're holding a skill standard as well as a work and an employer standard as well. It's pretty ostentatious in the way that they hold you to it. It's not, they don't take this lightly. Keep in mind that, and I know it sounds weird to the state board because these are not barbers that are taking a look at the program, but keep in mind, they look at other programs, electrical, plumbing, nursing, teaching, so they know how to break things down, and they know how to manage these relationships to make sure that the skill set is taught in a regular way. And oftentimes we exceed. That's why I shared those numbers. More often than not, we exceed.
All right, thank you.
I do have a question, Jesse, in terms of like our master barbers are technically our instructors. And so within your program, I think you stated that as long as the barber has 3 years of
Yes.
experience, then they can take on an apprentice. With the way we have things set up in Maryland is you have to be a master barber in order to take on an apprentice. If we were to adopt or enter into like a partnership with you, would we be able to maintain that?
Absolutely. We have some states that say they have to be an instructor. That's your dictum. You decide what a journeyman is and what a journeyman can do. If you want that to be a master barber, and I would advocate for that, that's absolutely fine. Use that as the dictum. So when they're setting up the standards, in order to take on an apprentice, you have to have a master barber put in place, and it has to be a master barber that's training them. So before that's approved, and typically I'm sorry, I apologize. What we typically do is we work with the state board and teach them what paperwork needs to go back and forth. And one of the best practices that we have that I suggest is what's called a salon shop stylist license. So it's going to have at the very top the establishment license. We're going to make sure that's in good standing, not expired, and there's no complaints. And then it's going to have every journeyman master barber that's listed beneath them. They're going to be double checked with the state board. That paperwork gets delivered to the Department of Labor for approval, and then that gets pushed over to the state board for approval. Once that approval process is done, then we have an approved implementation of an apprentice at that point. So there's a cross check and an audit all the way around.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was my concern because we do have quite a few barbershops that are not owned by barbers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, there has to be a master barber at the helm of this, for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We had a comment from, a member of our administrative team.
Hi, Leslie Braxton, the licensing regulation supervisor. I just wanted to comment on something that came up between the conversation between Tony and Jesse. Channing also made a comment in the comment section. And Ken, please correct me if I'm wrong or if it needs to be clarified. But I just wanted to make a comment for the general public as well. So at this time, it's my understanding that apprentices should not be being charged booth rent. Because that's not different than them having to pay for an apprenticeship. So I just want to make sure that that was clear, that apprentices should not be paying booth.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't saying that they were. To my knowledge, they are not supposed to be paying booth rent, but my question to Jesse was more so the master barber pays booth rent. And most of our barber shops, our barbers are contractors, not W-2 employees. So,
Right.
And with that being said, it's like, well, if they're not an employee, how can they be a part of this program? And he cleared it up by saying that the master barber who was taking on an apprentice needed to have an establishment license in order to make that apprentice their employee.
Yes, I understand. I just felt like it was important for the public listening that it was clear that apprentices don't have to pay.
I know that's right.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other comments or questions for Jesse on this topic? I feel like I may have a question specific to this. Jesse, are you planning on hopping off soon?
I can stay as long as you need me to.
All
I'm
right.
at your disposal.
We're gonna hold for public comment, okay? For members of the public to have any questions or comments regarding the specific section of the meeting. Channing, you have your hand back up?
Yes, one last question. You may have already answered this, but being a part of this program, I know it's a little hard sometimes to find apprentices. Do you all offer I think you mentioned something like that. I thought that's what I heard, but do you offer
Yes.
apprentice a program where we can be found as apprenticeship holders?
That's a great question. Yes, because once you're an actual registered apprenticeship program and you're given an RAP number by the DOL office at the apprenticeship office, you get put on what's called an ETPL list, which is an employer training provider list that goes to all workforce offices and WorkSource. So it gives you an automatic you literally have a listing on their website on the regular. I know my organization does that as well. If you're one of our training partners as well, we take candidates. We see anywhere from 18 to 20 applicants a week on a regular basis, and the bulk of them are barber. We put them into a candidate pool and provide them for our training providers as well. And in all fairness, we have no problem finding apprentices. It's not an issue. I have well over 1,500 people sitting in my pool at the moment.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. And for
Thank you.
sponsors alike, because we also see apprentices having a hard time finding sponsors as well. So does that go for the?
We in our program specifically, now I know Workforce works the same way, or in a similar way, is we have an apprentice candidate navigator. Their job, once somebody's actually applied to the pool and been accepted and done all the hoops, is we start looking for an employer, and then we make that relationship. Again, they're an employer-employee relationship, so they still have to interview and do the whole bit and sell the shop on it, but we try to make those connections. So we have somebody that regularly, once a week, she's handing out lists of apprentice applicants. Great questions.
Great, thanks, Jesse.
My
I have
pleasure.
one more question. Do you have states, or do you know of states that run the RAP in conjunction with like the state board apprenticeship? Or
Yes.
simply stick with the RAP? Like and what do you think is the best practice? I'm just curious to know your opinion.
Well, for you guys, you're a state approving agency, so it would be the Maryland Labor Department and the apprenticeship, and you just happen to be underneath the same umbrella, so it would be very easy for the two of you to work together. Some of the states that I see that do it best, obviously my own Washington State is probably one of the best. Montana has just set up some incredible stuff. North Dakota has a state board program where they push to DOL, and then the two of them talk together. If I'm going to say the Iowa also is one that does really well as does Arizona. The most efficient, I would say deficient, would be Indiana and California. Colorado is also another one that the state board and the DOL talk really, really well together.
You said Iowa.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thanks, Jesse. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Martha.
So, to wrap up this conversation, so I brought Jesse had also presented at our Board of Cosmetologists meeting 2 weeks ago. So I wanted to give you all both the opportunity to hear his expertise in terms of the registered apprenticeship program. This is something that the board has been interested in for a while now, even a little bit before the pandemic. In 2019, they were gearing up to introduce this into legislation, but then pandemic happened and things kind of got put on hold and they got pushed back. And so, in working with workforce development, we've been having these conversations, and I just wanted you all to just have a little bit more in-depth knowledge about the program from someone who has been working with it for so long. So thank you so much, Jesse.
My pleasure.
And so I did a just a polling of board members at the last meeting. And majority of it, members thought this was a great opportunity. Can I just see a raise of hand from board members what we're thinking about the RFP? Are we all like good with it, or are we thinking, no? Just curious. Okay. Lenny, you there? I think Wade. Any thoughts? But
No, I
see
think
them.
it's a great program.
Thank you. All right, awesome, good to know. All right, so at least I know what to take back to Commissioner Dove when we have that conversation, talk about a consensus and how the board feels about it. And next steps, we're just waiting to see. We gave our wish list to the Office of the Secretary, and they're looking at all of the proposals from the units here in OMP, occupational professional licensing. And so I think this is a good one, and hoping it gets picked because this is really important, and I think it's really great for us to streamline our process and have some structure to our apprenticeship program. Thanks again, Jesse. I do think I have one question from the public, so if you want to just hang back, I appreciate it. Thanks. I can take it from here just for this
Yes.
letter, Larry.
Sure.
Updates. So I have House Bill 1547, domestic violence awareness training here. I gave this same update to the Board of Cosmetologists. So right now, the bill has been amended and it will be effective January 1, 2026. What does this mean? It means that upon renewal, licensees for both the Board of Barbers and Cosmetologists will be required to take a course, a 1-hour training course, whether it be in person or virtual, about domestic violence awareness and how to spot signs. And there's a different list of criteria. So right now, what I am doing on the back end, I've been contacted by a couple of companies that are interested in providing this training. And so in the bill, it just specifies board approved training. And I will be running that past you all as well. But when we look at the criteria, we have to make sure that these groups are actually pinpointing what's in the bill. What's being taught is specifically in that bill to meet the criteria. So that's what we're doing right now on the back end. Just wanted to make you all aware that the step in the process right now is approving those programs that licensees, you all would take to be considered adequate upon your renewal, if that makes sense. So that's all the update that I have right now. We're approving programs. The next point would be creating a portal of some sort for licensees to upload their certificates of completion to prove to the board that, hey, I completed my training. I do want to pinpoint that this requirement is a one-time requirement. It's a requirement for individuals who have they're obtaining their original license, meaning this is like their first term. So upon applying for their original license and renewing your license. Once you've taken the training and you've renewed once, this is not a requirement that you have to do every 2 years. This is a one-time requirement, just to be clear. If I have no questions or anything from the board, we can move on to item C.
Yes.
And item C, just for your recollection, that we amended the agenda. Item C would be outreach initiative. Tony, I can yield the floor to you to speak about that that portion of the agenda. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it just dawned on me. I was on social media and I just saw that there were a few artists or hairstylists in our area that, you know, received national recognition for the work that they're doing within the industry. I do know that we are trying to bridge the gap and reach out to our licensees to let them know that, you know, we're not just this, you know, regulatory enforcement board, but we do care and we want to have some type of outreach. So I think it would be a good idea, like as I stated in the email, to, you know, when we see our licensees being honored in such a way, to, you know, send out congratulate them and showcase the work, whether it be on a national level, they get rewarded for something, or even when we have our community, there's so many of our barbershops that do community outreach and things like that. So I just think as a board, we should, you know, just work more on connecting with barbers. And that's pretty much all I was saying and thinking. What are you guys' thoughts? We were talking about a forum at one point to try to connect.
I think it's a good start. I mean, it will be a nice change and it'll be a great way to get everybody involved or more people. And like we talked about in the last meeting, to kind of make things a little bit more aware at what's going on at the board. So people would tune in more. I think it's a good idea.
I think so too.
So,
Tony,
yeah.
Tony, I would just to interject, I think it's an awesome idea. As you said in your email, it's too often licensees hear from the board when it comes to rules and regulations enforcement and talking about what they're doing wrong. And some positive reinforcement would just be really helpful. And I think, as you said, it goes for both boards, honestly, to really make sure that we're highlighting the people that are doing good as well, and not only the individuals who are, you know, unlicensed and not in compliance and all that. It's really important just it boosts morale and makes them want to do right when, you know, you see others doing what they're supposed to be doing, because there are so many. We do get those comments when we come out. I've heard it from many a barbershop owner, you know, I'm licensed, I'm doing what I need to do, and so across the street, they haven't been inspected, and they, you know, so I am in agreement with you. The social media piece, I am still working on it. We did, I remember, I think when Channing first got on board, we were working on some sort of initiative for that, and it was, I don't want to say shot down, but the idea of like barbers and cause, like our beauty industry having its own like social media presence. I don't think that idea was taken into consideration. I'm going to be honest, the reason I'm not 100% sure, but this can be something that I push for more now that I know like the board is like, no, we need to be out there. You know what I mean? And it's not just Nicole, and we have like, I mean, if we're being honest, our industries are very different than other industries in this division, which are like plumbing, HVAC, real estate appraisers, home improvement, which is pilots, architects. We license all of those industries, but this beauty industry is different. You know, we're one of the only boards that requires, you know, licensing be posted conspicuously at your station. We're one of those stationary, if you will, professions, whereas the other professions in this division, you know, they're out in the field, moving around from house to house and so on and so forth. So we're different, and I think we come across the customer in a different way. A lot of you all are therapists to your clients. You all are, it's just a different personal touch. So I think it's very important for us to have that social media presence. And so I will present that again to that specific office. Just talk about that. But Tony?
No, that's it. That I was about to just defer to you to see what you thought.
Yeah, in agreement for sure. Congratulatory letters, outreach emails, definitely highlighting individual in our Smocks and Clips newsletter would be great. So we would have to create some sort of standard, some sort of, because we have to make sure that we're being fair to all, right? And we're not like there's favoritism or anything like that. So I'm interested in following up with their email. And I'll probably send you all something like on the back end to get us started, see how we even like start this. But thank you for your thought. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we can move on to item D now. I know it says C here, but remember we amended the agenda to item D, which is the inspection summary. And I can just yield the floor to Ms. Braxton.
Hello again, my name is Leslie Braxton. I'm the Board of Barbers Licensing and Investigatory Supervisor. This is, if I pull it up, this is the Maryland State Board of Barbers Inspection Summary for June 2025. Give a chance to pull it up. Okay. This information was collected from April the 10th through June the 4th. During that period, we received 12 new shop applications. All of those have been assigned. During that time, we received 2 complaints, and all of those have been assigned. We have conducted one inspection. We've completed 1 complaint inspection. There were 74 inspections conducted, and then there were 15 that passed, 16 that failed. Of the 16 that failed, there were 2 new shops, 4 late renewals. There were no complaints that failed. There were 2 per board inspections that failed, and 10 routine inspections that failed. There were 5 shops that were closed at the time of inspection, and there were 38 that were permanently closed. Further down on the list, this is a list of the counties for which we have received new shop applications from, and then again was collected as of June the 4th. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I do see a hand raised from the public. I would like us to go back up to new business for our apprentice restart. And apologies if I say this name right, for CBA. Are you on the call now for the apprenticeship restart to petition the board? And your sponsor, are you both on the call?
Yeah, we are present.
Thank you. Yes, so we did call you earlier in the meeting. I don't think you were on yet. So we want to revisit item B in business, which is you petitioning the board to restart the apprenticeship. Jake, I'll yield the floor to you.
Okay, hello, everyone. So both apprentice plus C and his sponsor Sean on the call. I spoke with Sean about a month ago regarding the restart for his apprentice. So I'll give a brief introduction. So plus C was an apprentice barber from January of 2021, then renewed in January 2023 through January of this year. and completed 1,920 of the necessary 2,250 hours. However, did not reach the 2,250 hour requirement by January when his license expired, excuse me. And now he is petitioning the board for a restart and a third term on the apprentice license. So Sean or Placide, if you want to just explain to board members why you weren't able to complete the program the first time and what you're going to do different, and then they can ask questions and then take a vote on your restart.
Hi, my name is Sean. And I am the master barber for Barber Bread. I'd like to thank you for your consideration to let me speak and to let us start the restart apprenticeship program for Placide. I'd like to apologize first because I just received the email at 8:36 a.m. this morning, and but so I wasn't able to speak earlier. But yes, Seed is interesting in restarting his apprenticeship program there. If at all, I think he'll feel more comfortable starting all over again, as opposed to trying to acquire his additional hours. And that's the sole purpose of this this meeting here today.
Thank you, appreciate it. Board members, did you have any questions or comments for the master barber or the apprentice at this time? Excellent vote. In terms of this apprenticeship restart.
I have a question. Is this the first restart or the third restart? I couldn't quite.
Yes, ma'am. So this is the first restart. Placide had to leave out the country. He had a death in his family. I think he can explain that, but he is not from the U.S. And so it was something that was required for him to do outside the country. And then so he was a great barber, and he showed great potential and interest in wanting a desire to proceed with this career here. So that's why I'm accepting him back. I'm trying to get him started back over again.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, as our master barber here said, I'm sorry, I think it was Sean.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Sean, thank you. This would be his first restart. Third term, I mean, essentially it's a start over, so it's not a third term, it will be first term because he's restarting the program. So none of the hours, I think it was like 11:20 that he had, 19:20, they would not be counted towards this this apprenticeship. He'd be starting at 0 and building back up to 2250. So that's what a restart is. We're not taking the hours that he had and allocating them to a new license.
Okay,
It's him
understood.
starting.
Understood. Thank you.
Yes, because he had 2 renewals. I mean, he had 1 renewal, right? So he had the license for a total of 4 years, right?
Mhm.
He didn't get the 2250 in the 4 years, if that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Mhm.
Any other board members have any questions? For particular?
Now, last week we were supposed to be on a Google conversation, and I had another gentleman that was also on the call last week, and there was no one on the call. I invited him on this call as well. I don't know if you guys wanted to deal with that also. His name is Daryl Jackson.
So good luck. So to be clear, yes, last week there was a discrepancy. It was a communication and we got our dates mixed up. And so we could not hold the meeting last week as it was originally scheduled for June 9th. We had moved it to June 16th. And so because June 16th was on the calendar, we had to allow the public to come onto the June 16th meeting. So we didn't hold it last week. In terms of the apprentice restarts, that is something that has to be discussed and emailed to prior to the meeting. Members of the public can't just jump on and try to get and petition the board. So you would have to talk with our apprenticeship coordinator, Jake, ahead of time. So if you have that person's contact information, you can certainly forward it or forward Jake's information or our board email to that individual, Mr. Jackson, and tell him to email us with licensing information, and we can get them on the next meeting. So Board of Barbers does not meet monthly. We actually meet every other month. So the next meeting will be in August, okay?
Okay.
But please tell them, give them our contact information, and please tell them to email us so we can get them on that list and they can be, on the meeting, okay?
All right. So,
Thank you.
okay,
Oh,
thank you.
I'm sorry. So now we have to have a vote. So Larry, I'm just taking over here. Go ahead.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'd like to ask for a motion from a board member to approve the apprentice restart for Mr. Placide. And I'm sorry, the last name is very, very teeny. But for the apprentice restart to begin this program over. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Channing. Can I have a second?
I'll second that motion, Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right.
Thank you, board members. All right, apprenticeship restart approved.
Can I just-
No, go ahead.
So Sean, I'll now you've been approved by the board, I'll send an email to you and Placide with your next steps. But you've been approved and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much for the approval. Yeah.
You're welcome. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, ma'am.
Feel free to join us again. It's not just for this,
Well, actually, it's my first time on a back end meeting, and I thought it was very informative. I find that it's a little different than what I started back years ago, and it's very informative that this is being done because our profession is slowly withering away, and it's sad, but I'll be joining the other call. So if you guys can put me on the list, I'd like to be informed, and it'll help me stay up to date. I noticed that you had a couple legislative updates. I wasn't even aware of that. We don't get that kind of information generally. The licensed people, we just don't get that kind of stuff. So it was good to hear that information and see what's going on.
Right. So you don't need a personal invitation to board members. They're always open to the public. So that's why I'm sharing this page now. Our board business, it tells you all of our dates for the board meetings. It gives you a link to this meeting. The only reason you were personally invited to this is because of the apprenticeship restart that we did today.
Okay.
This is a public meeting, so please share this information with your fellow barbers, barbershop owners. We invite you all to be a part of this meeting as it is your industry. But you see here, we have the calendar for the remainder of the year. Our next meeting is August 11th. We do have to change this here. It says on October 13th, but it's actually going to be on October 20th. And then the last meeting of the year is December 8th. So that's right here. You don't have to memorize it. You can just type in like in Google Board of Barbers and then go to board business over here on the left, and it will bring you to this page. You can also see any of the business that you missed throughout these other meetings this year from February and April. Minutes from, I'm gonna have to check on that. This link isn't working, but essentially right here where it says agendas and meeting minutes, it's where you would find what we talked about at those meetings. And, it would just bring you up to speed, okay?
Great.
We do have our Smocks and Clips newsletter coming out soon, and those will be coming out regularly, so you can just stay in tune to what's going on. But please come back. Thank you.
Thanks again.
No problem. Any other members from the public comment is now open. I don't even think we moved on to that agenda piece. Excuse me. So
But you can.
Yes, apologies. So moving on to item 7, which is public comment. Any members of the public, if you'd like to speak now, you may unmute yourself and speak your first and last name for the record. Any questions or comments about any, it was in reference to today's meeting? Pulling up the agenda for you all. Okay. All right, Larry, I'll give the floor back to you for adjournment.
Okay. So we are about to adjourn a meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I will make a motion to adjourn today's meeting. Campbell.
I second that motion. Wait.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned at this time at 11:21 a.m. Thank you, and I'll see you all August the 11th.
Have a good month, everybody. I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody.